He seeks the dead. In the hills of ancient Israel, late in his reign, King Saul faces an enemy and the silence of God. Tonight he breaks the law to hear a voice from beyond. This is the story of desperation and forbidden counsel. Saul, once chosen to unite Israel, now trembles. He is a king in his 50s, haunted by past failures and a prophet's silence. Fear drives him closer to forbidden paths as a great Philistine army gathers. The woman of Endor is an outcast known for calling spirits. She is older, wiry, and cautious. In her hut the villagers whisper that she can breach the boundary between life and death, a boundary the law forbids. Samuel was Israel's wise prophet and judge. Though dead, his name still carries judgment and guidance. To Saul, Samuel represents the word of God that Saul longs to hear, the very voice that has gone silent. As the scene opens, Saul watches the Philistine encampment and learns his army is outmatched. His advisors panic, and his soldiers are weak. The prophet Samuel has died, and the Lord is not answering by dreams or prophets. That silence becomes a deeper fear. In the next days, Saul seeks God through priests and casting lots, but receives no clear instruction. The royal rituals yield nothing. Saul's desperation grows because ritual action alone cannot replace the guiding voice that once led Israel. Then Saul hears a report that the Philistines will destroy him and the kingdom. The ominous words land like a stone. Where once Saul might have trusted God as planned, now he faces only immediate loss and the end of his dynasty unless God speaks. Faced with doom and no prophetic answer, Saul makes a fateful choice. He decides to consult a woman who calls up the dead, despite God's explicit ban on necromancy. The king's oath and fear push him across the line he once enforced. That night Saul disguises himself and travels to Endor with 2 attendants. He hides his royal seal and approaches the woman's hut under the moon. Each step is heavy with the knowledge that he is breaking Israel's covenant laws to salvage his throne. At the hut, the woman is afraid when Saul reveals himself. He swears to her by the Lord that she will not be harmed. Her fear is not only of the law but of retribution. Saul's solemn oath forces her compliance despite the danger. As the ritual begins, the woman performs signs she once feared to use openly. Her voice shakes. The hut grows colder, and the small fire dim. Saul leans forward, refusing to look away. He expects a spirit to obey him because he is king, but what comes is heavier than obedience. In that very moment, a vision of Samuel appears. The room fills with a quiet that pulls at Saul's heart. The woman recognizes the presence. Saul falls face down in terror. The prophet's arrival is not entertainment. It is a summons of truth and judgment. As the dust of wonder settles, Samuel speaks and condemns Saul. He reminds Saul that God has rejected him for disobedience, and that the kingdom will be given to another. Samuel's words expose the spiritual cause. Saul's pattern of disobedience severed Israel's covenant protection. Then Samuel declares what will happen. On the morrow Saul and his sons will be with him. The prophet foretells total defeat and death. This pronouncement is not mere prediction. It is the moral consequence of Israel's broken covenant, announced by the man who once guided the nation. As Samuel's words finish, Saul is crushed. He is stripped of hope, and hears the finality of judgment. The witch trembles and weeps, having summoned what she did not intend to control. Saul's silence afterwards shows a man who has exhausted every human option. When dawn approaches, Saul and his men return to the camp heavier than before. The king keeps the secret of his visit, but the mood is changed. His soldiers sense hopelessness. The political reality follows the spiritual word Samuel declared. Days pass, and then the armies clash. On the battlefield, Saul's forces falter. His commanders fall, confusion spreads, and the Philistines press their advantage. The tactical failure mirrors the earlier spiritual failure. Israel fights without the blessing that once secured victory. During the clash, Saul's sons fall. Each death is a blow to Saul's heart, and to the dynasty he fought to preserve. With his heirs gone and his army broken, Saul's earlier choices culminate in personal and national catastrophe. In that moment of collapse, Saul is mortally wounded and falls on his sword to avoid capture. His life ends in tragic finality, fulfilling Samuel's judgment. The king who once ruled by prophetic favor dies abandoned by that very mercy. After the battle, the nation mourns. Israel loses its king and many leaders. The Philistines celebrate their victory. The spiritual lesson is clear. When covenantal obedience erodes, national stability follows. The story becomes a cautionary record in Israel's memory. When mourning comes, scholars record what happened. Saul's resort to necromancy violates the Torah's prohibition and demonstrates the moral cost of seeking forbidden shortcuts. The passage teaches that disobedience severs the protective voice of God, not merely human comfort. Days and years later, mothers tell their children how Saul fell. The tale is used to teach obedience and the danger of idolatry of power. Samuel's final words remain a moral mirror. Leadership without faithful dependence on God collapses from within. Finally, the narrative closes by asserting prophetic authority. Samuel's voice, even in death, shows that God's covenant demands holiness from leaders. The story warns rulers. The function of kingship is servant leadership under divine law, not personal survival at any cost. When morning breaks on the ruined field, the lesson is clear. Saul's downfall shows that disobedience severs God's guiding presence and brings national collapse. The passage teaches that seeking forbidden means cannot restore what covenantal faithfulness breaks. If this story moved you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you do not miss the next one.